Good afternoon, class. I will be doing the recording for section 1.6, 1.7. It's kind of a combination of two sections. We're dealing with segment bisector and midpoint. In this case, for this lesson, when we are done, you'll be able to find the coordinate of the midpoint of a segment using the midpoint formula. So first of all, what is the midpoint of a segment? So the point halfway between the two endpoints of a line segment is the definition. Okay. In this case, they gave you if PQ is the midpoint of PR. So if this is the midpoint given, that means PQ, segment PQ, is going to be congruent to QR. And in geometry, we can show that the two segments are congruent by putting a sign on top, either 2 marks, 1 marks, regarding what you have. So now knowing this, we're going to use the following picture to solve this problem. And always read the question. It says find PR if Q is the midpoint. So knowing Q is the midpoint, guarantee me that PQ and PQ is going to be equal to QR. Okay. And then what they gave you is PR is 14x plus 2. So when I add, remember last class we did segment addition. When I add PQ plus QR, it should give me the whole thing, which is PR, not PQ, PR. So in this case, since I know these two are the same, I know QR is 6x minus 3x, 6 minus 3x for PQ, which QR will be the same thing. And the whole thing is given to be 14x plus 2. That's what we have to do using segment addition, because I cannot say 6 minus 3x equals 6 minus 3x and be able to solve. Because they're both the same equation, you won't be able to solve it. But I know if I add the two smaller congruent segment, it'll give me the bigger segment. So when you combine like terms, it gives you 12 minus 6x equals 14x plus 2. And you solve for x, x would give you 0.5. Okay, I just don't have space to show you. Then every time I solve for an x, I go back and read the question. The question is asking you, find PR if Q is the midpoint of PR. So I wanted to know what PR is, not x. I know x is 0.5. PR is the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is I'll write it here. PR is 14x plus 2, right? We just said x is 0.5. So PR would be 14 times 0.5 plus 2, which makes PR equals to 9. Okay, and that's the answer you have to underline. Okay, good job. So for try it once, this is a little bit different than what we have. I'm just going to go ahead and at least show you how to set it up. What is the measure of BC? So they're looking for only from here to here. If B is the midpoint, again, B is the midpoint. I know now this segment AB is going to be equal to this segment. So AB is going to be congruent to BC because B is the midpoint. And to solve for this equation, since AB and BC has separate or different equation, even if they are the same, the equation is different, I can easily say 4x minus 5 equals 11 plus 2x, and then solve for x. Okay, so go ahead, set up your equation, solve for x, and bring it back to class, and we will talk about it. Okay, the next one is the midpoint of a number line. If the coordinates, that's what we have to put, if the coordinates of a segment of a number line are A and B, then the coordinates of the midpoint would be A plus B divided by 2, the coordinate, because we're still on number line, so I don't need the S part. The coordinate of this problem is going to be A plus B divided by 2. So this is what we have to do. In this case, it says CE, find the midpoint of the following. So the first example is C and E. C is -4, E is +2. Remember, we add and divide it by 2. So C is -4 plus E is 2, divide that by 2. -4 plus 2 is -2, divided by 2. The coordinate will be -1. Okay, -1. And for the second part, try it number 2, DG. D is here, G is here. So 0 is D plus 8 divided by 2. So what is the midpoint of DG? The same thing with the number 3, -11 plus 8 divided by 2. What is that? Okay, make sure you answer that question before you move on to the next one. All right, the next set of the problem we're going over is called midpoint of the coordinate plane. So here is on a number line, that means 2 coordinate is given, you add and divide by 2. But if it is on a number line, like this is my x and y, this is going to have an x and a y coordinate, and this is going to have x2, y2 coordinates. So since it has 2 coordinates, my formula is going to look like this. I'm combining the x's divided by 2, I'm combining the y's and dividing it by 2. It's easy, just make sure you're adding, not subtracting, and then you divide. So when I wanted to find the midpoint of each, so I'm going to label this as x1, y1, x2, y2. The common mistake a lot of my students make is they add 0 plus 2 divided by 2 as one of the x, and 6 plus 4 divided by 2. No, you have to add the x's. So in this case, 0 plus 6 divided by 2 is my x coordinate. My y coordinate is going to be 0 plus 4 divided by 2. Okay, that's what you guys have to do. So just be careful on that one. So when you add 0 plus 6, that gives you 6 divided by 2. When you add 0 plus 4, it's 4 divided by 2. This can be simplified as 2, and this can be simplified as 3. So the answer for this one is going to be 3, 2. Okay, that would be the coordinate of the midpoint. Just to add another question, and you guys gonna finish it up. Just remember the x with the x and the y with the y, the 8 with the 12. Don't mix it up. Don't combine numbers that's not going to be combined. -12 plus 6 divided by 2, and then we have 8 plus 12 divided by 2. Okay, so what is -12 plus 6? That gives you -6 divided by 2, right? 8 plus 12 is 20 divided by 2. So what is the coordinate here? Write it down. Okay. All right, the back side, and this one is the one that gets to be a little bit hard, because this question is saying finding the endpoint of point or graph by, the endpoint by calculating it or by graphing it. So the question is finding the endpoint given the midpoint and one endpoint. So what this means is, in this case, find the coordinate of the other endpoint of line segment with the given endpoints and midpoint t. So the midpoint is t. So if I have just drawn a line, so t is the midpoint and has a coordinate of -1, +1. R is my other endpoint and has a coordinate of 2 and 4. And I am looking for the other endpoint. Is that, remember, this is x and y. So if I add x plus 2 divided by 2 gives me negative 1. Y plus 4 divided by 2 gives me positive 1. So there are different ways of doing it. So graphing it is the best way. Kind of makes your life easier even if you don't have a graph paper. So I'll show you graphing way or the equation way, and then we have this formula that we use, double subtract. So at the end of the year, you know, there are some of you who likes to memorize formulas and you work better that way. Some of you, you know, like the application part of it. So I'm kind of going to show you both ways. So what we know, if t is the midpoint, let's say this is, I don't think they label it. Let's label it as S. So I know the distance from ST and TR would be the same since T is the midpoint, right? So whatever I travel to this side, I have to do the same way towards X. So from negative 1 to positive 2, I know we travel how many points? Good job, positive 3, right? We went 3. Then to the opposite side, I just need to travel negative 3. So what is negative 1 plus negative 3? This is going to give you negative 4. Okay? Then the next one is y. So from positive 1, I went to positive 3. So I travel 3 to the right. Then I have to travel 3 to the left. So when I take 1 minus 3, this gives me negative 2. So the coordinate of the other endpoint is negative 4, negative 2. Okay? That's the way we're going to do it. So I'm going to do the second example with you. We will practice this again in class, so don't worry about it if you're getting confused. So let me kind of, instead of just drawing it on a number line, so kind of try to create this. So in this case, T is the midpoint, which is 2 and 1. So 1, 2, 1, right? T is 2 and 1. And the other one is 3 and negative 2. So 3, negative 2, 1, 2, right here, right? So this is the other endpoint. So this gives me positive 3, negative 2. Remember, this is my midpoint. This is my R. And I'm trying to find where S is. So what happened? How many did I go down and over is what I need to do so that I can go up and over. It's just like finding the slope. So for the X or for the Y, I don't know whichever one you wanna go over. So how many did I went down? From positive 1, I'm at negative 2. So I went 1, 2, 3. So I went down 3. That means I have to go up 3. Okay? Then how many did I go from this point to the right? I went 1 unit plus, right? So I have to go 1 unit left. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start from positive 2, and 1 left is going to get me to positive 1. So X coordinate will be 1 here. So I'm just trying to find. And then from positive 1, I went up 3, which gives you 1 plus 3 is 4, guys. So 1 comma 4 is going to be my new unit. Okay, so remember, guys, if it's getting too difficult as you guys are doing it, don't worry, we'll practice more. I know my time is getting, so I'm going to do this one and one example, and then we will do it in class. So what this one is talking about is, here's a much easier way for those of you who cannot see what I just did. It's called double subtract. What you double is the midpoint. Double the midpoint, and then you subtract the endpoint. Okay? So you can read through it, but what I'm doing is I'm double the X, which gives me 8. Double the Y, which gives me 16. Right? And it explains to you here. 8, 2, and then I will subtract. So what I'm going to subtract the X from here. So 8 minus 9 gives you -1. 16 minus 12 gives you 4. So that would be the coordinate of the other endpoint. So you pick which method you want it. We'll practice more in class, and then we will, you guys will decide what you want to do. Okay? Have a great afternoon, and I'll see you next class.